Good evening. I'm Steve Richardson, and this is the February 2015 Richardson Law Office's Legal Hangout, broadcasting live here from Woodbury, New Jersey. And this month and next month, February, March, we're sort of into FAFSA season, as it were. A lot of parents and students out there are working to fill out the FAFSA form, apply for financial aid for college for the next fall, either because you're starting school and going into your freshman year or starting graduate school, or you're going back to school next fall and are looking for financing for that year. So this is the time when you're filling out the form, sending it in, looking at your financial aid options. And as a result of that, what I've done is published a new book to my website where it's called the Applying for Federal Financial Aid, the Definitive Guide for Students and Parents. Now, there's over $1 trillion now nationally in student loan debt. And it's really exceeding credit card debt and one of the next big bubbles that may burst. So what I wanted to do was publish this book and provide some information to people so that they can come up with the best plan that they can to pay for school, so that you don't become a statistic. You don't graduate from college and go into the workforce with crushing student loan debt. So be smart about it, be strategic about it. So I had invited questions from people that I could answer live on the air. I have not received any questions for this month. I will be doing another Hangout next month on March 26th at 5 p.m. These Hangouts are every month on the fourth Thursday. And again, I'll be talking about student loan issues, mainly having to do with the financial aid questions and strategies arising out of that new book, because this is when people are applying for financial aid. Now, come May and June, as people are graduating, there'll be Hangouts to deal with questions more to how do I pay the loan back. But in this Hangout, I wanted to go over a couple of things with you. If you've downloaded my book and read it, if you're in the process of making the application, or you've just been researching on the internet questions that you have, I want to stress a couple things. One, as you're applying for financial aid, remember the book is applying for federal financial aid, because I believe that the U.S. Department of Education really has the best programs available in the forms of loans as well as grants. Now, and you should really look at those first. So you fill out the FAFSA form, you submit it online at FAFSA.gov, and you get your student aid report back. You have an idea of what your expected family contribution is, and hopefully you provided the Department of Education with all the information on all the schools where you have applied. So this information in this report can be sent to the financial aid office of those schools. And if those schools have accepted your application, they will then, in response to that student aid report, send you a financial aid offer. And this is where the real haggling begins. If you are starting school in the fall, if you're not going back to school, and you're in the process of choosing a school, this is really the critical time, because you're looking at affordability. Yes, you or your child may have their heart set on a particular school that they've gotten into, but as the National Student Loan Debt has shown, sometimes going to the school that your heart's set on may not be one that you can afford, and you need to look at the practical aspects of it. And you're looking at who has the best offer. So these schools are going to want to say, this is what we can provide for you. It can be a whole panoply of different options. But in looking at these options, look at the federal options first. They're going to provide, hopefully, the amount of money that you can borrow in direct loans as a student. Now, direct loans through the federal government are both subsidized and unsubsidized loans. And now, for our purpose, it's right now the subsidized loans are needs-based, so you have to show an economic need for it. But the unsubsidized loans are not needs-based and can be applied for undergraduate as well as graduate school. So, look at those loans. Look at what you might be able to get in grants. There are grants such as Pell Grants that you might be able to get. That, of course, you don't have to pay back a grant, so you want to load up on those as best you can, and then ask the school and find out which schools participate in the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant Program, the SEOG, as it were. Not all schools participate in it, but if one does, you can, again, based on your financial need and what other financial aid you received, you might be able to get up to another $4,000 in grants through that program. And in addition, as far as loans are concerned, I talked about direct loans from the U.S. Department of Education, but also look into whether the school participates in the Perkins Loan Program. Now, that loan program is administered by the school, not the U.S. Department of Education. And schools who participate in the program are given a certain pool of money by the feds that they can then lend out through the Perkins program. So it's really on a first-come, first-served basis. Same thing with the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant Program. So if the schools that you go to participate in those programs, and you decide to go to that school, make sure you get your claim in early, because even if you qualify for the program, you may not get as much money later on as funds dwindle and are committed to students that are going to the school. So there's a limited fund of money every year that can be handed out in SEOG grants or in Perkins loans. So you want to try and get a jump on that. So once you get all of your grants that you can and student loans through the direct loan program or Perkins, there may be a gap. There may still be an amount of money that is left over. There may be different scholarship programs offered by the school. They may have their own financial aid. Look into that. But you should look into the Parent Plus program. It's for undergraduate schools for parents where they can fill the gap. So you may not be able to get enough financial aid to cover the entire net cost of attendance for the school, but you can make up the difference through a Parent Plus loan. So Parent Plus loans are credit-based, not needs-based, so there is a credit application involved. But they're fairly loose requirements. They're not that strict as far as their lending guidelines. But if you have some credit problems or credit issues, you might still be able to get a Parent Plus loan if you can get a cosigner, and that is not the student, obviously, and that may go through. If that doesn't work, you might be able to demonstrate extenuating circumstances to the Department of Education for the negative credit situation. And they may lend out based on that. And finally, even if that fails, you might have the ability to get more in a direct loan for the student, your child, if you're not able to get a Parent Plus loan. So as you can see, once you consider federal grants, loans to the student, and Parent Plus loans, you're usually able to borrow enough money through the federal programs to cover the cost of attendance. Now, of course, you want to minimize the cost of attendance by going to the most affordable school. You don't want to overextend yourself, and so you want to make sure that you're not borrowing too much, even under those circumstances. The federal government loan programs have some great repayment plans, which I'll get into in my May and June Hangouts. And that's why I really direct people towards the federal program. But look at what you can afford. You might want to look into going the first 2 years to a community college. Getting a good community college, it's usually a lot more expensive the first 2 years. Get an associate's degree. Make sure that the credits from that community college will then transfer to the four-year college of your choice, and then spend your junior and senior year at that college, and that way you're minimizing or reducing the overall cost of attendance as far as what debt you may end up graduating with. So so when you get the financial aid offer, if it doesn't mention some of these grants or some of these loan programs, ask the financial aid office about them. You know, do you participate in Perkins? Do you participate in the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant Program? Sometimes they may direct you towards maybe private loans, or here in New Jersey, the class loan program. But I really don't recommend getting into that unless you absolutely have to. Look at the federal stuff first. And if you've sent it in and maybe you're getting a little nervous, you haven't heard yet on what may be available to you. Or maybe you have a child who is a freshman or sophomore in high school. They're not ready to go to college yet, but you want to start a little earlier on the planning process for financial aid. The Department of Education has a great forecasting utility. It's at fafsaforecaster.gov, and you can go to that even if your child is still in middle school and plug in some information, and you can get an idea of what might be available, so you can start doing some advanced planning and saving towards what the expected costs of the school might be and what might be available in financial aid. So there's all sorts of options for you. So if you're still in this process, again, if you haven't downloaded my book, the Applying for Federal Financial Aid, Definitive Guide for Students and Parents, please go to richardsonlawoffices.com and download it. It's a free PDF download. I also provide all sorts of follow-up information to that book to help you along through the process. And take a look at that. Take a look at my videos on richardsonlawoffices.tv and other articles on my website having to do with student loans and the application process. The more you educate yourself about what is involved here with the application process, and the more you plan, the better off you're going to be after you or your child graduates, because you've made the smart choices. So take a look at that, look into that. If you live here in Southern New Jersey and you would like to consult with me on issues of financial aid and what you should do, or if you have an older sibling or somebody that you know that's struggling with payment of financial student loans, have them give me a call at 856-432-4113, and I'd be happy to talk to them, set up an appointment to come in and take a look at it. As you go through the process, if you have questions, you can also ask them for next month's Hangout, which again will be on March 26th, Thursday at 5 p.m. I'll send out an email to everybody to let you know and remind you about a week or so in advance. You can email me your question to steve@richardsonlawoffices.com, or you can tweet it to me to @SJRLaw. So that's it for this month. Hopefully you're not getting too much snow in your area, as we're still in the grip of winter. But spring, at least supposedly, is only a month away, and it'll get warmer, and hopefully the weather will get a lot better. So till next month, I'm Steve Richardson, and good luck with the financial aid application process.